Some movies carry a strange kind of luck. Accidents, disasters, and tragedies that shadow a film production long after the cameras stop rolling. Hollywood calls them cursed, but maybe it isn't luck at all. Maybe it's what happens when ambition, chaos, and fate collide behind the lens. Today, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on movie shoots that were cursed. Poltergeist, 1982. At first glance, Poltergeist had everything going for it. A big studio, Steven Spielberg producing, and a story that turns suburban comfort into supernatural terror. Coming in as the 8th highest grossing movie of 1982 and earning 3 Academy Award nominations. It's considered a modern horror classic, revered by many. During production, actors and crew began joking about the bad energy on set. JoBeth Williams, who played Diane Freeling, the mom, later recalled spending nearly a week filming the muddy pool sequence surrounded by skeletons, assuming they were just plastic props. She said in an interview years later in 2008, "I found out, as did the whole crew, that they were using real skeletons because it's far too expensive to make fake skeletons out of rubber, and I think everybody got real creeped out by the idea of that." End quote. The detail only deepened the feeling that something wasn't right on that set, that for a movie about restless spirits, maybe some of them never really left. Shortly after the film's release in 1982, Dominique Dunne, who played the eldest daughter, was murdered by her ex-boyfriend at the age of just 22. Tragic enough on its own, but the strange pattern didn't stop there. As the sequels rolled out, more misfortunes followed. Poltergeist 2 saw the deaths of 2 more cast members. Julian Beck, who played the preacher Cain, died of stomach cancer during filming in 1985. Will Sampson, best known for his performances in The White Buffalo and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, passed away in 1987 from complications after a heart and lung transplant. Heather O'Rourke, the young actress who appeared in all 3 Poltergeist films, grew up with the story itself. She died unexpectedly in 1988, before the release of the final movie, at just 12 years old. Her cause of death was ruled congenital stenosis of the intestine, complicated by septic shock. Her death, arriving so close to the film's completion, cemented the legend of the Poltergeist curse, one fueled not just by tragedy, but by a long list of strange coincidences the cast would never quite shake. The Omen, 1976. The Omen arrived during the height of Hollywood's obsession with the supernatural. Directed by Richard Donner and starring Gregory Peck and Lee Remick, it told the story of an American diplomat who discovers that his young son, Damien, may be the Antichrist. What began as a prestige horror film quickly became surrounded by stories that felt as uncanny as the movie itself. Before filming even started, the production was plagued by strange accidents. 2 planes carrying cast and crew were struck by lightning, and a 3rd aircraft hired for aerial shots crashed after hitting a flock of birds, killing everyone aboard. At the same time, a restaurant where Peck and producer Mace Neufeld had dinner reservations was bombed by the IRA. Even Donner's hotel was hit. On set, an animal handler was mauled to death by a lion. And during a scene with Rottweilers, a stuntman was attacked through his protective gear. Then came the event that would define the legend. In August 1976, special effects artist John Richardson, who had designed the Omen's notorious decapitation scene, was involved in a horrific car accident while working on another film. His assistant, Liz Moore, was killed instantly, decapitated in a manner eerily similar to the scene he'd staged months earlier. The crash happened on Friday the 13th, near a road sign that read Omen, 66.6 kilometers. Even for those who didn't believe in curses, it was hard to ignore the coincidence. The Omen had been a hit, but what lingered long after its success wasn't the film's story. It was the unsettling idea that the production had somehow invited something dark to follow it home. The Exorcist, 1973. When The Exorcist opened in theaters, it didn't just shock audiences, it redefined what horror could be. Directed by William Friedkin and adapted from William Peter Blatty's novel, it stars Ellen Burstyn, Linda Blair, and Max von Sydow in the story of a young girl possessed by a demon and the priests who risk everything to save her. The film became a global sensation, critically acclaimed, massively controversial, and one of the first horror films ever nominated for Best Picture. But behind the camera, the production felt as haunted as what appeared on screen. A mysterious fire destroyed nearly the entire set, except for the bedroom where the possession scenes were filmed. Friedkin called it a coincidence, but the cast wasn't so sure. Injuries piled up. Burstyn permanently damaged her spine, Blair fractured a vertebra, and crew members were hurt in freak on-set accidents. Over time, 9 people connected to the film died before its release or soon after, including actors Jack McGowan and Vasiliki Maliaros, whose characters also die in the movie. Others included technicians and relatives of the crew, adding to a sense that death was following the production. Even the screenings carried strange energy. Viewers fainted or ran from theaters, priests were invited to bless cinemas, and rumors spread that the film itself was cursed. Friedkin encouraged the hysteria, turning The Exorcist into a cultural event that felt half movie, half seance. Whether it was bad luck, obsession, or something darker, The Exorcist carried an energy that refused to fade, a film that made evil feel tangible, and left everyone wondering what it might have awakened. Twilight Zone the movie, 1983. When Twilight Zone the movie began production in 1982, it was meant to celebrate one of television's most imaginative legacies. 4 directors, John Landis, Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, and George Miller, each took a story from Rod Serling's classic anthology and reimagined it for the big screen. What should have been a nostalgic tribute to wonder and morality became instead one of the darkest chapters in Hollywood history. During filming of the segment directed by John Landis, actor Vic Morrow and 2 child performers were killed in a helicopter accident that remains one of the most infamous on-set tragedies ever recorded. The scene called for explosions and low helicopter passes over a swamp. The pyrotechnics ignited too close to the aircraft, causing the rotor to fail and sending the helicopter crashing onto the actors below. The impact killed all 3 instantly. In the aftermath, Landis and several crew members were charged with involuntary manslaughter for employing the children illegally and ignoring safety regulations. The high-profile trial lasted nearly a decade before ending in acquittal, but the damage to reputations and to the industry's conscience was permanent. The tragedy forced sweeping reforms in set safety and child labor laws, changing how Hollywood approached action filmmaking. When the film was released in 1983, audiences couldn't look past what had happened. Spielberg distanced himself from Landis, and the movie that was meant to rekindle the spirit of the Twilight Zone became a memorial to its victims instead. For years afterward, people avoided even mentioning the film by name, a project intended to inspire imagination that instead left behind guilt, grief, and the inescapable feeling that some stories should never have been told at all. The Crow, 1994. There's a certain kind of film that feels fated from the start. The Crow was one of them, a rain-soaked gothic tragedy directed by Alex Proyas and starring Brandon Lee, the son of martial arts icon Bruce Lee. Adapted from James O'Barr's comic, it told the story of a musician murdered alongside his fiancée, who returns from the grave to avenge her death. The project had the look of a midnight cult classic before a single frame was shot. From the beginning, accidents and setbacks followed the production. Crew members were injured, equipment was damaged, and storms repeatedly shut down filming. Then, on March 31st, during a late-night scene involving gunfire, tragedy struck. A revolver meant to fire blanks had been mishandled. A fragment from a real bullet was lodged inside the barrel. When the gun went off, the fragment discharged like live ammunition, striking Lee in the abdomen. He was rushed to the hospital but died after several hours of surgery. He was 28 years old. Brandon, like his father, died young, both men gone long before their talent could fully unfold. In the wake of his death, Proyas finished The Crow using stand-ins and early digital effects, determined to complete the film Lee had nearly finished. When it premiered in 1994, The Crow arrived not as the stylish revenge fantasy it was meant to be, but as something unshakably somber. Every frame now carried the weight of its own story, a film about love and loss that became inseparable from the life it cost. Even now, it lingers like the city it depicts, dark, beautiful, and forever haunted by the ghost who gave it meaning.